Daniel Whitman was 34 years old, living in a modest apartment on the north side of Chicago. Every morning he would sit by the large window in his living room and watch the streets below come alive. He observed people rushing to work, taxis honking impatiently, and cyclists weaving through traffic with remarkable precision. From the outside, Daniel looked like any other professional in the city. He wore pressed shirts, polished shoes, and carried a leather briefcase. But inside, a deep restlessness gnawed at him. He felt incomplete, as though his life was a shadow of what it should be. At his job in finance, Daniel was competent but not exceptional. He earned enough to live comfortably, pay his bills, and enjoy occasional luxuries, yet he felt perpetually behind. His colleagues spoke of their weekend trips to New York or their plans to invest in vacation homes, while he quietly nodded, pretending not to care. Social media only amplified this sense of inadequacy. Every night he scrolled endlessly, seeing pictures of friends traveling abroad, celebrating promotions, or enjoying family milestones that he hadn't yet achieved. Comparison became a silent poison running through his veins. He often asked himself why his life felt stagnant. "What am I missing?" He would whisper late at night when the city grew quiet. He thought back to his college years, when his dreams were grand and limitless. He wanted to be wealthy, admired, and respected, yet somewhere along the way, reality settled in, and he accepted a life that felt ordinary. This acceptance, however, was never peaceful. He envied others who seemed to move forward while he remained in place. The weight of comparison and unmet expectations pressed against him daily, suffocating his spirit. One particularly draining evening, after working late and missing dinner again, Daniel decided to take a walk to clear his head. The streets of Chicago hummed with neon lights and chatter from bars. As he wandered with no destination in mind, he noticed a small, dusty bookstore tucked between two tall buildings. Its wooden sign creaked slightly in the wind, and the glass windows displayed stacks of old books. Curious, he pushed the door open, greeted by the warm, earthy smell of paper and leather. It felt like stepping into another time, where the noise of the city melted away into silence. The shop was quiet, with only a faint hum of classical music playing in the background. Daniel walked slowly through the narrow aisles, his fingers brushing across spines of forgotten novels and philosophical works. He wasn't searching for anything in particular, but his restless mind needed distraction. Then, tucked between two thick encyclopedias, he noticed a slim, worn book with faded golden letters, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. The name was familiar, though he couldn't recall where he had heard it before. He pulled it off the shelf, blew away a thin layer of dust, and flipped through its fragile pages. His eyes landed on a sentence that struck him with surprising force. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He read it twice, then 3 times, as though testing the truth of the words against his own life. For years, Daniel had blamed external circumstances for his unhappiness. His job, his modest salary, the success of others, even the city itself. Yet here was a reminder that perhaps the true problem was not the world outside, but the way he thought about it. The idea lingered in his mind like a spark in the dark. He closed the book and held it against his chest for a moment. There was something oddly reassuring about those words, as if they were written specifically for him across centuries of time. Without hesitation, he carried the book to the counter, paid a few dollars, and tucked it into his coat pocket. That night, back in his apartment, he brewed a cup of coffee and sat at his desk. The city buzzed outside his window, but inside, Daniel was still. He opened Meditations again, this time with deliberate focus, ready to hear what this ancient emperor had to teach him. The first passage he read spoke about self-control, about how we should not waste energy on things beyond our influence. It was simple, almost obvious, yet powerful. Daniel thought of all the hours he had wasted scrolling through social media, feeling bitter about the lives of others. He realized that these feelings of envy and frustration gave him nothing but pain, while adding nothing to his own life. The wisdom in the book was not distant or abstract. It applied directly to his daily struggles. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of clarity cutting through his fog. He decided to change his routine. The next morning, instead of grabbing his phone the moment he woke up, Daniel made himself a strong cup of coffee and sat quietly with meditations. He read slowly, underlining lines that resonated with him. He wrote brief notes in the margins, reflecting on how he could apply the words to his day. When he left his apartment and stepped into the brisk Chicago morning, the city no longer felt like a rival. The rush of people, the noise, even the impatience of drivers, it was all the same as before, but something within him was different. At the office, Daniel noticed how often colleagues complained about management, deadlines, or trivial inconveniences. Normally, he would have joined them, venting his own frustrations to feel included. But that morning, he remembered Marcus Aurelius's reminder, focus on what you can control. He couldn't change company policies or prevent last-minute tasks, but he could control his response. He kept quiet, worked steadily, and chose calm over irritation. A coworker teased him for being unusually silent, but Daniel simply smiled. He wasn't withdrawing from the world. He was beginning to master himself within it, one decision at a time. In the evenings, instead of numbing his mind with endless scrolling, Daniel started journaling. He bought a simple leather notebook and wrote down 3 things each night: what he was grateful for, what challenges he faced, and how he could meet them with strength. Some entries were short, others longer, but the act itself gave him perspective. He realized that most of his struggles were temporary, often exaggerated by his own mind. By writing them down, he saw them for what they were, passing clouds rather than permanent storms. Slowly, the restless weight he had carried began to feel lighter. Still, the process wasn't smooth. There were mornings he fell back into old habits, grabbing his phone and sinking into envy again. There were days at work when he snapped at a coworker or felt crushed by comparison. But each time he stumbled, he reminded himself that progress wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence. Marcus Aurelius himself had written that even the most disciplined minds faltered. The key was to return again and again to the path of self-mastery. Daniel accepted his flaws as part of the journey, using them not as excuses, but as lessons in patience and resilience. One evening, while walking home, Daniel stopped at a busy intersection. Cars sped past, horns blaring, pedestrians shuffled impatiently as the light refused to change. A year ago, this noise would have irritated him. Now he watched calmly. He realized he couldn't control the traffic, the weather, or the people around him. All he could control was his own state of mind. He took a deep breath, smiled faintly, and waited. In that small, ordinary moment, he felt a sense of power he had never known before.